Good evening, Goodman Games fans. Welcome to another episode of Raw or Rules as Written. My name is Matt Robertson. I will be one of your hosts this evening, joined by.
Oh, who is he? He's
That's
a
your cue,
grog.
Stefan.
Oh, me. I thought you were gonna lay in with all the names and titles.
Well,
I gotta,
first we gotta
yeah.
introduce ourselves.
Well, of course. Well, I was just putting Bob before myself because I'm
We'll
good
fix
like
it in
that.
post.
Yeah, of course. I'm Stefan. DM Bad Wrong Fun on a couple social medias. We'll see how long those survive. But we have our illustrious guest. I've got a few titles this week, Matt. I'm gonna steal just a little bit of your thunder, if you don't
No,
mind.
go ahead, because I'm running
Is
out of title. I'm running out of
okay.
title here. So
Hopefully, I'm not duplicating any that I remember from like 6 months ago. But we got the Pontiff of Pontification, the Sultan of Specification, the Emissary of Information, and the Grognard with the most grok.
I have not got those, but tonight I did have a P1 in place. I thought you
Oh,
almost
okay.
stole it. I had the Pompadour of pronouncements.
Otherwise known as Bob Brinkman.
Yeah, our very special guest. We're pleased to have him back, Bob Brinkman. He's been busy with all kinds of stuff going on, so we are thrilled that he could join us this evening. Bob, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, guys. I'm doing pretty good. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
If this is somebody's first time watching the show, can you tell them a little bit about yourself and your credentials, maybe, Bob?
Sure. I'm a freelance author, generally working with Goodman Games. I've worked on, Castle Amber, Dark Tower, Crypt of the Devil Lich, working on Caverns of Thracia. I've worked on both DCC Lankmar and DCC Dying Earth. And then I'm also one of the co-hosts of the Sanctum Secorum, which returns tonight, and the Sanctum Secorum Reading Room, which will return next month. Oh,
All right.
and I did work on a little product called Mutant Crawl Classics, along with the illustrious Jim Wampler and David Beatty.
Just that. And we are here talking about Mutant Crawl Classics. We dove into MCC RPG. We're using the second printing of the MCC RPG. And Stefan, we got to go back, 4 weeks to the 26th episode, I think?
No, well, it's more than 4 weeks because we're bi-weekly, so it's like we're going back
That's
like
true.
about 2 months now.
That's
It's
true.
This is episode 30, and we're covering episodes 26 through 28 because 29 was just me rambling on adventure paths.
Was 26 when we had Tim Snyder on? Was that Tim Snyder? I think it
Oh,
was.
I believe so. Oh,
Well,
it's
our
crazy how your memory gets fuzzy when you're actually the host and not a viewer or a
it sure
listener.
does.
Just wait till you
Well,
get to be
Bob,
my age and your brain is just fuzzy all the time.
pretty sure it was Spider-Man. And our first question for Tim was, is Mutant Crawl Classics compatible with Dungeon Crawl Classics?
Most certainly. Most certainly. As a matter of fact, in the back of the book, there are some rules to kind of help you bring classes back and forth, but they are certainly compatible. You can mix that chocolate and peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Yep.
their compatibility, I think a lot of players look for similarities, and when they're not there, it feels almost like they're missing. But just as they're compatible, they're two separate things, right?
Yes, yeah, they're two separate things, but it you could almost compare it. I'm going to use a Fred Saberhagen comparison. So he did the Empire of the East series, right? Ardna's World and those. He also did the Books of Swords, the Swords trilogy, the Lost Swords trilogy. All of those are actually set on the same world, just tens of thousands of years apart. And so you could certainly look at the two in that way.
Sounds perfect. I mean, we completely agreed, as Jim did himself.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if you know, Bob, but we're getting little inserts, little commentary from Jim Wampler himself, the creator, which is very exciting when we're putting on a show about his material.
Well, yeah.
Stefan, do you have the
So
questions up?
if he's there,
I
he can
do
correct
have
me
them.
as I go.
Do you
We'll
want to hit Bob
see.
with the second one?
Absolutely. So the second one we asked in our first MCC episode was, where does MCC take place, and what's the setting?
Well, the setting is Terra AD, and there really isn't a defined when, just like there's no exact definition of what the great disaster was. It was. It's left to the judge's decision on exactly when they want to set it, if they want to explore what happened to the world. Jim left it very open in that form. He gave everyone the world and the rules without nailing down a setting that you're stuck with. It gave everybody a lot of flexibility with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned in a later episode, Stephen Newton. Yeah, because we had Tim Snyder and then Stephen and then Lou.
Yep.
In Stephen's episode, we talked a little bit about how in Omnivari of Eden there is a suggested timeline that he put in there of when the Great Disaster was and when that adventure takes place. But that's very, very optional.
Now, Bob,
it is not the way.
Were you there for the playtesting of MCC?
I was involved in 2 playtest sessions in Cincinnati. Both Jen and I were. We got to go out and we played one regular session, and then we got to play in essentially a funnel tournament, or essentially the reprise of a funnel tournament during the playtesting. But we were not part of the major playtesting. We weren't part of the mutant murder hobos.
I know you've been busy unpacking with your move and stuff like that, so I'm going to give you a trivia question, but I'm going to give you multiple choice.
Ooh.
In Jim's own campaign on MCC, was his campaign setting 5,000 years after the current day, 10,000 years, 50,000 years, or 100,000 years afterwards?
After the disaster?
After the disaster. When did his campaign take place? Earth 5,000, 10,000, 50,000?
You said after current day the first time, so after ostensibly 2023 or the Great Disaster.
You're right. Let me specify one more time. His campaign took place on Earth 5,000 years, 10,000 years, 50,000 years, or 100,000 years after an advanced 30th century Vancian super society fell. Super science society.
So we're going from the I'm gonna go with 5,000 years.
It was close. The answer is 10,000.
So, close. I was halfway there. That's very nice.
It's better than the other 2 options where you would have been 5 times past.
Fair.
All right. Now you have to get 2 more of these special questions right so that one of our viewers in chat wins the prize of having you become the
voice of their answer.
The voice, machine. Yes, exactly. You know the NPR bit I'm going for.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan.
If you get 2 wrong, we're going to pick a viewer at random and break their finger.
Oh!
All right. Well, our third question for Tim was, where did all the occupations go? We had 100 occupations, Bob, and then we went down to 2, hunter or gatherer.
Where did they go? Well, society collapsed. And so you have hunters and gatherers because that's essentially all there were at that point, right? I know there's been some expansion in third-party things and materials of that nature, and I believe Brendan wrote an adventure that sort of expanded on that as well. If you wanted something that was a little bit beyond a just hunter-gatherer, but everything collapsed. That's all there is.
So would remaining civilization, with their previous skills, and as society's advancing and they're having generations of children and mutations and radioactivity is popping up, would society devolve back all the way to that hunter-gatherer state after 10,000 years? Or do you think we would be able to teach our children and retain any of those job-like functions?
Well, let me put it this way. Maybe 100 years ago we would have had a better shot at it. So let's say a limited nuclear engagement breaks out today. Sorry about that, guys. Show might be cut short. The EMP alone wipes out virtually every piece of electronics, including access to the internet, which libraries are relying on more and more as opposed to books, because people aren't reading books like they used to. So a lot of that is gone. A lot of the interconnectivity for things like electrical grids are gone. And so you're all the way back. And if it's not limited, but it's a major catastrophe, I mean, the moon's gone, right? I mean, the moon is now the sky arch. You're talking, mankind was probably driven back into caves just to try and survive and is slowly emerging. So most definitely, it's very possible for that sort of outcome to occur given the right circumstances.
Stefan, a little bit off script here. What is your what's your plan for the apocalypse, or where are you going to go when the world starts collapsing? What's your plan?
Well, I live pretty close to a state park, so I'm gonna go and start camping a lot. Or well, maybe not camping a lot. I like my four walls and my roof, but I'm gonna, got a big lake out there, got a few smaller areas, a lot of fishing. Got a good bit of land here, and got, and I'm down in Texas, so it's just going to be a huge shootout, the whole statewide. We all have our guns. It's just going to be kind of like, how many guns and bullets do you have, and we'll build our shacks out of, we'll blow our houses apart, and we'll build everything out of guns after that. So.
And it's true. What about you, Bob? Where are you headed?
Well, I think I will find the person that is building a fortress out of the skulls of his enemies, and I'll give him tax advice.
My answer is I got a Walmart like 4 blocks down the street. No windows, dirty walls,
you and everyone else, buddy.
On the roof. I mean, the Walmart's stocked with clothes, food, exercise equipment, movies, generators. I'm going to the Walmart and I'm taking over the Walmart.
Have you seen the movie Dawn of the Dead? Do you know how that ends, right? It starts really well and then ends.
Anyway, before Raw becomes like us reading out a prepper book, let's get on to our next question. How do you make an artifact check?
Wow. It's been so long, and as I said, I wasn't able to find my MCC book. It's a roll modified by your, I want to say, your class and your intelligence, and you roll against the artifact's difficulty.
Yep.
Yeah. So when these seekers find different artifacts like that, where's I can't find her handout for it, Stefan.
I don't.
Let's see.
It's
1d20 plus intelligence mod plus your class level minus the plus your class artifact check bonus, because they all get an artifact check bonus, some higher than others. Minus the artifact's complexity modifier. Do you do anything different than that, Bob, when you're playing MCC? Do you, like, I know a lot of people kind of ignore the complexity modifier because some people don't understand it.
Well, I think less people ignore the. I think less people ignore that than the max tech level. That's what people ignore. So that, you still give your 8 intelligence guy a shot at trying out the gene resequencer, and you just let him see what happens.
Because it's fun to watch characters turn into puddles. I believe, and it's been a while since I've run MCC, but I also believe that there is a variant rule for making an artifact check in the midst of combat. So you find something, you're like, God, I hope this is a weapon. And, that's when you discover it's a ballpoint pen. But,
anything's a weapon if you try hard enough.
That's right.
What about this, Bob? So a regular artifact check takes 30 minutes of time, takes 3 turns. And I'm going to jump to the next question, Stefan, the one where we had Stephen Newton on with the combat artifact check. One of our questions for Stephen was, how do you make a combat artifact check? And it says, first you have to burn a point of luck just to attempt it. It takes 1 round instead of 3 turns, and it's just a D20 roll. And that's it.
And it's just that, yeah. No mods.
Yeah, you're not getting your intelligence because you're taking time to study it. You don't get your class advantage because, again, you're not taking time to study it. You're just grabbing it, going, "I hope this works."
Now, one thing that we did forget to mention is that if you have a positive intelligence modifier, you can assist the person doing the artifact check to give them a +1, which happened in a recent game of mine. Several people got around. Then there was a nat 1, so everyone was in that radius, and it was great. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So speaking of 3 turns, Bob, do you ever shorten that amount down? Like if you have one person that wants to do an artifact check, you've got 4 other players that are standing there for 30 minutes. Does the action move on, or do you just speed
So
everyone ahead 30
normally,
minutes?
for me, normally in play when people are doing full blown artifact checks, because it's not something you can do while like the party is hiking from place to place, for example. So that often takes place like maybe in the evening when the party is camped. And I noticed that after the first catastrophic failure, it's the party camps over here. The guy making the artifact check has to go way the hell over there because they learn pretty quickly when half the party gets turned to goo. God, artifact checks are so awesome in funnels. They really are. But yeah, they generally kind of do it towards the downtime. But it's sort of the same thing in DCC, right? When the cleric all of a sudden has that disapproval and has to spend the next 30 minutes chanting and praying. In theory, if there's small things people want to do, I just want to gather some food, things like that, you can certainly make small rolls. But if they draw aggro and bring a 6-headed Tyrannosaurus laser Rex back to the camp with them, well, then that artifact check's not going to be completed.
Yeah, you move the spotlight. That's the
Yeah.
I guess the short version of the answer. Move the spotlight to someone else.
You said I pontificate, so I can't do the short version.
You do. You're not allowed. It's in your raw contract. Another useful thing to point out is our best folks in MCC at doing artifact checks are pure strain humans, and they all have regenerating luck. So that's something people kind of look at those class descriptions, and I think they don't really think about that in the full context of what the different classes can do, especially in artifact checks. People are way too hesitant to use the luck when like having that high artifact check is really going to pay for itself in dividends.
I think one point we forgot, Stefan, when we talked about it, is that we still add, even though it's a straight D20 roll, there is one modifier, and that's the complexity modifier. So whatever the complexity modifier of the artifact is, you're still, so it's a D20 minus something.
Yeah, I think we talked about in that episode where, like, on average, you got to get, like, at least just a 15 on the die to have any hope.
You want to roll high. You want to roll real high.
Use the
luck.
luck.
All right, well, Stefan, if you want to, this was our episode about Sentinels, Bob, where we talked to Stephen Newton. Stefan, you want to hit him with question number 1?
Sure, and it is, how does a Sentinel's artifact die work?
Because people kind of tend to think of the artifact die as a kind of a MCCD die, which it's not.
No, it's not. Gosh, all right, I got to think about this because I haven't played a Sentinel, and it's been a while since I've run. But I believe it gets added to the artifact check.
Yes, but only.
Go ahead, Steph.
Only for weapons and armor. That's their. That's what they do, and it's artifact checks and for weapons using them in combat.
Oh, all right. Yeah, see, I don't remember that part.
So does that make, because a Sentinel?
That makes sense. Yeah, it totally makes sense for the class. So
combat specialization, so he gets an extra, plus that D3 to attack, but not to damage. And we kind of talked about that because, and Jim had even said, if you're using artifact, you shouldn't need any bonus to damage. You're doing like 3d6. Yeah.
The guy with a plasma rifle fighting the guy with a spear doesn't need a deep die.
What do you think about the D die not being there, Bob? Is there any precedence in your games at all for Sentinels having any kind of increased?
I've not introduced a D die when running MCC. I think its absence is very thematic, right? I mean, if you look at the appendix and source material that DCC primarily draws on, especially the big names, right? Conan, Fafhrd the Grey Mouse, and everything. You can see examples of deeds. When you look at some of the materials that Jim used when drawing on MCC, like Command D, for example, there's not really mighty deeds. It's you by the skin of your teeth and a lot of wits and a bit of luck, and all of that's covered in kind of the standard roles that you're making. So there's not really a need for mighty deeds. There's instead the wide variety of abilities and powers that are offered through the character classes that sort of make up for the signature moments that mighty deeds give to DCC. Mutations and artifacts give those signature moments for MCC.
Yeah, absolutely. And did Conan ever go to space or fight any robots? I'm
No,
not a
well,
Conan. I'm not
maybe
a Conan
in
expert.
Marvel, but
Yeah.
but then again, in Marvel, he teamed up with Elric, so
Yeah,
All
I
right.
don't know
Well,
about those comics.
our next question was, do Sentinels have an increased crit range for their melee attacks? And that's kind of, going on the same thought process, which I had when we started this. And after getting Jim's kind of take and looking at the pure strain human classes in a different light, I kind of came to the decision that if I play MCC and it's above first level, I'm going to automatically give every pure strain human at least one artifact because that's where their specialty is and where they would shine. And Stefan had brought up the point like a gas mask isn't going to fit on a manimal with a
Or
beak.
I think
right.
Tim or Steven had brought that up, and
But you have
but
to
yeah,
consider something though, and because that's not necessarily true. One of the things that Jim did when he set this in this nebulous future, right? A gas mask, the equivalent of a gas mask that you would find in Terra AD, is not like a World War II surplus gas mask necessarily made for a human head. It could be an entire head encompassing globe,
yeah,
right? The
the
tech is
bubble
supposed
helmet.
to be so far removed from what we know that a fire, a gun doesn't look like a pistol, right? They're different, and the tech is different. So you could certainly use those things depending on how you want to describe them. That doesn't undercut though the fact that giving pure strain humans, if you're starting over level 1, giving them an artifact because that's their shtick, it doesn't undercut that at all. I would just say that just because something's a mutant doesn't mean it can't use the tech.
Yeah.
What do you think about increased crit range, Bobs? Do you think there's any call for them or any place in MCC where they could be possible?
I don't know if it's a requirement, but certainly depending on the play style, depending on the setting, and depending on the exact situation, there's always room for it, right? There's always room to homebrew something at the table. And if you've got, like, for example, if you've got a level 4 seeker and he's going up against essentially a party of zeros, just give him that expanded crit range and let him cut through him like butter, right? But that's
I mean
all
that's
a
maybe
moment.
a special artifact or a weird mod to an artifact is
I
what
like
Yeah,
that.
I'm
I like
something
that
suggesting.
that's
idea.
like permanent. Yeah,
I like that idea a lot. Definitely like a smart chip that you put into your, plasma
Hmm.
rifle or whatever. Well,
Yeah,
what's
it does a
next
little
question?
aiming for you. It knows where to find those good
well,
organs.
there was a movie where they put a chip into a paralyzed man, and it was like, okay, well, let me take over, and I will fight these people for you. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a brilliant film, and if you can find it, you should watch
Upgrade.
it. Upgrade, yes, that was it.
Yep.
All right. Well, our next question, we're getting into the nitty gritty, Bob, of kind of nuances of MCC. Stephanie, you got question 3?
I sure do. Is written communication less important in MCC with everyone being illiterate? Or the shaman can get a bit of literacy, and other
So,
folks, if they're and
Give
maybe
me
a
a
little
little bit
bit than
more than
more.
is it less important?
How do
so,
you feel? Because we came to different conclusions, and after we talked through it, I think its importance is contextually very different. Maybe it's not less important, but it is
so
important in a different kind of way.
To refresh your memory, Bob, on page 18, it says all sentient characters know the verbal form of Newspeak, a mongrel descendant language of the last universal language spoken by the ancient ones. Beginning characters are otherwise illiterate and have no written language. So besides any written language, besides kind of being able to, know what the Red Cross is by trial and error, that it'll heal you, or the three, the radioactive emblem is bad. Um, Seeing signs of the ancients, we really don't have. They really don't have any other literacy besides that.
Right. I know. It's one of those things where I think the written word becomes more important if you can find a way to decipher it, because the written word has generations worth of knowledge that your people don't, but it's also sort of the biggest secret, right? So if you can get that tiny little piece of information, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. And I would say, with hunter gatherers, while they don't necessarily, as rules is written, they don't have a written language. They certainly would still have the equivalent of like Neanderthal pictographs, right?
Yeah.
Paint this thing bad, this thing good.
Hobo signs.
But so I think that it's more important when you can decipher a piece of it, but in day-to-day use it's utterly useless. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Yeah, and well, so everything's going to be written in, the language of the ancients that they have no idea how to read anyway. So you're looking at an
Get yourself to
instruction
write
manual,
Patron AI.
looking at an instruction manual to fly a plane, and
I mean, maybe it's an audiobook now in 10,000 years after the Great Disaster. Maybe it's all written in various forms of poop emojis. Like, we don't know what they've
Well,
been
and
doing.
that's the other thing, right? Good example, right? You find a manual on how to fly a plane. That doesn't really help when you can't conceptualize what a plane is. Find a book on crop rotation, on the other hand, and decipher even parts of it, and it could help your community exponentially. So it really, day-to-day use, nothing, but those pieces that you might be able to glean can be really important. And I think that judges should lean into those moments, because that really strikes a chord of how different this world is.
give us an example of how you would lean into it.
Well, I mean, for example, well, I'll use crop rotation, right? So they have found this powered on tablet of some sort, and first they see pictures of plants, and so they know that it has to do with plants, and it shows them growing, and so they maybe decipher, I will say, 4 paragraphs of material, but that material is important. Well, if they're on their coming of age quest, right? If they're trying to bring back in artifacts instead, if they can come back and give something that might have again the crop growth of their village, that would be huge. That would give them status. That would give them prestige. They would be of note. And then I would lean into those things for role play. Now you're not just the guy that came back with the boomstick. You're the guy that now has fed our people potentially for generations. And so you might be idolized by some and hated by the hunters, because now everyone wants to just settle down as opposed to migrating and following the herds. And it can give you a lot to play with.
Okay.
And it may not be translate or understanding 4 paragraphs. Like, I think of when you halfway through you're describing that, I was thinking of the I like these Kyrgyzstan videos on YouTube. They do like these. I'm probably horribly mangling that. They do like these 10-minute videos that are like, let's explain this scientific thing and have like cute cartoons and 5-10 minutes, and we tell you about black holes or something.
But we're
But
talking about the
or
written word.
terraforming another planet. But yeah, we are talking about the written word. But just an example of saying they wouldn't necessarily understand the language of the ancients in a verbal form either. But depending on how many pictures go along with those instructions, they may be able to get a better idea if they can. But they still
Said,
need
get
that
yourself the
context,
right
of
patron
course.
AI.
Oh yeah,
If
some of the
the
Patron AIs say like you can read the language of the ancients for
Yeah.
10 minutes or whatever.
if the public service videos from Fallout survive, we'll be okay.
Okay.
Fallout the video game. Well, our next episode was with Lou Hoffer, Luau Lou, and so the first question that episode was kind of all about shamans. So does a shaman automatically receive a patron AI after surviving 0 level? And I'll give you a refresher, Bob, because
Well,
I know you haven't found your book yet, unless you
no,
want to hit it.
I'm gonna take a hit at this because really they're not really a shaman without a patron. But at my table, I think it would be a case of if they find something appropriate during that funnel, great. If not, they would be getting it between games. But certainly, as a shaman, they need a patron AI, or they're not a shaman. They're a faux shaman. So I would say
That is
yes,
true.
right? That's just like giving a wizard their spells or giving a cleric their god. Without it, they're just not that.
That's true. Yeah, and well, this is the first time you and our audience are going to be experiencing. I've got Jim's comments on these previous questions because we haven't been able to address them yet. So, Elena, if you could bring up handout X1, our first handout for the evening. Jim says that in game terms, they do. But in practice, that should always be played out. Not every writer, even myself, places a patron AI or connecting tech device in the funnel adventure. So finding an AI artifact that potentially bonds the shaman with the patron AI lately falls to GM fiat. So we should, put that in there ourselves if it's not in there already.
And when I was looking at the different 0 level funnels for that episode, I think every single one does have a part where either a patron AI is specifically introduced, or I think in Hive of the Overmind, there's not one that's specifically introduced, but it says like, and there's a bunch of screens over here, and you should introduce a patron you want in your campaign. So,
Like when I did Neverwin Rock, there is certainly an entity in there that could be used as a patron AI, but it was meant as a mini adventure because it was part of a collection, and so I didn't have the word count to add a patron to it. So it's one of those things where there's potential there, but the judge has to build on it themselves.
Well, and so fun fact, one of the patron AIs in Seeking the Posthumans, which I think is max 16 characters exclamation point, is also one of the patrons in X-Crawl that I saw. So
Gee, I wonder
I
how that
saw his
happened.
name on there. I saw his name on there max 16. I was like, "What?" I said, "I know that guy."
yeah,
But I know nothing about programs, so I really don't even know what that means.
it's a
Programming.
character limit.
Is it?
It's an actual character limit. You create your username for this max 16 characters because that's what we
Uh,
built our system to accommodate for.
all right. Well, I appreciate that bit of tech because I had no clue. Stefan, what's our next question?
Our next question from that episode, it was are shaman limited by the amount of wetware programs that their AI patron offers?
Oh, why are they? There's nothing in the rules that say they're limited to one patron AI. Of course, the patron AIs might not play well together. And in the book, in the core book, that's all the wetware that's available is what's listed with the patron AIs. But there's nothing to say that once you don't have a connection with a patron AI that is allowing you to use wetware, that you might not find more wetware elsewhere that you can incorporate either. So no, you are not limited to just the wetware offered by your patron AI. It's just that's the easy stuff. That's the easy stuff, and the rest is quest for it.
Yeah. And Elaine, if we could bring up handout X2, Jim kind of agrees with you. Says for the most part, yes, that's all they get. But other options include patroning to other AIs with all the risks of serving multiple masters. And in lots of third-party materials, there are additional wetware programs delivered in other forms other than a patron AI. So gaining them by different means. Would you be open to that, Bob? Gaining them by other means besides a patron?
Most certainly. Although I think so as to not essentially undervalue the shaman class. I would require such things to be used by a shaman who is already bonded, who already has a mind that is prepped to accept wetware. Because otherwise, the class becomes superfluous, right? I mean, if everybody can use wetware, then what's the point of the shaman? Um, but certainly, I would be open to other things because the patron AIs themselves are merely reflections of part of the society of the ancients. So, of course, there could be other ways to get wetware.
All right, Bob, I got your next trivia question.
Oh boy.
You remember, the viewers' fingers are depending on you getting this one right. So even though it says, the shaman can learn up to 5th level wetware programs, that didn't make it into the book. And Jim told me because the expectant word count of MCC was supposed to be around 40,000 words. Did Jim turn in a count of 100,000 words, 110,000 words, 120,000 words, or 130,000 words?
I'm going to go with 120,000 words.
Oh, so close again. Viewers, your fingers. It is 130,000 words. So he was supposed to keep it around 40,000, but he turned in a manuscript of 130,000. So a lot of it had to get cut back, which is some of the 4th and 5th level programs. But luckily,
Oof.
they've been filled in with third-party adventures and books
Oh
and
yeah.
Scientific Barbarian.
Well, it sounds like that MCC annual is just you got the content already written. Where is it?
It's out there, Stefan.
I'm
We
kidding.
need to get it.
Yeah, that ghost content.
All right. Well,
I don't
Stefan,
know. No. Hey, none of it. I'm joking here. I don't know. I'm
I
on
got
the
none of
Twitch
it.
show, but I got nothing that I'm making a joke, folks.
what was well, he could be out there. You never know.
But I'm not. I'm just trying to make sure I don't accidentally start a rumor.
That's all right. Rumors are great. What was our next question, Steph?
Our next question was, how does a shaman make a program check?
And so this is with the wetware they got, Bob. How do they cast, or cast for lack of a better word? How do they manifest that program check?
If I recall correctly, and again, it's been a while, but it's very similar to a spell check. It's a D20 plus level, and then I think the shaman is intelligence bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I think pretty much that's it. Am I wrong?
And they can. You're right. You're right.
And they
You're
can burn
100%
luck,
right.
of course.
They can burn luck after, and of course, and they got glowburn, which
That's right.
functions exactly the same as spellburn. So yeah, they cast exactly like wizards. We call it different.
Now, I've got another trivia question on this. Another comment from Jim. Bob, why do you think that the pure strain human shaman can glowburn? Do you have like a reason that this shaman can do these things like the mutants can?
Oh boy.
No, just your thought process. And
In my thought process, the use of wetware in primitive beings is certainly not in keeping with decent health to begin with, right? Yeah, something is if I think if you met a shaman on the street, you would they'd be one of those people that you instantly look at and go, "There's something not right with that person." And I think being able to glow burn, it's channeling that extra energy, that as opposed to eldritch energy, they're bringing in that radioactive fuel that is charging and sizzling through their synapses to help them better make those connections for the program and to bring them closer to their patron.
all right.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, Elena, if you could bring up handout X3 for us. Jim's answer when I asked him this question, I showed it to him. He said, "Good question." Basically, because the author said so. but really that loophole exists to mirror the abilities of DCC wizards and clerics, which makes sense.
Although clerics can very rarely spell work.
Yeah.
So our last question for Lou and for you before we get to your own personal questions was, are shamans missing something when compared to their DCC counterparts? Because we did have that program check where they're kind of rolling the same dice. We do have that glowburn that's similar to spellburn, but we don't have the library of spells when compared.
Well,
So
and
are they? Go
so
ahead.
that's what most people are going to look at, and say, if you're just thumbing through the book, you're going to say, well, a wizard, I've got X number of spells available for a wizard, and I've got this available, for the shaman. But it's not that the class is missing anything so much as fully utilizing the class as created and presented requires a bit more work on the part of the judge to bring in those extra opportunities for wetware, or to give them an opportunity for a second patron AI. I mean, there's nothing that says that you can't find a piece of wetware that you as a judge think is really cool in the third party, and there's nothing that says that the patron AI cannot give them additional wetware if they prove themselves very valuable. So in practice, in practice, people look at it and they might think there's something lacking, but in theory, there really isn't. It just, you've got to put a little bit more work into it.
And I think Stefan, if you just add some of the wetware spells that are out there from the computer arcs and stuff like that, and give them to assign them to a patron, then they're that patron's spells. It's as easy as that.
Yep,
Stefan, did you?
that's really it. I mean, and yeah, if you want more, when I was running more MCC, I don't think the computer arcs was quite out yet, or if it was out, I hadn't picked it up yet. But I was using some stuff from Gong Farmer's Almanac. I used a spell from there called Stairway to Heaven, just makes a stairway out of light, and that shaman had like 3 spells, and he got so creative with using unbreakable stairs to be barriers and go over any kind of thing, and make walls and try to trap people, like by limiting that character's options but giving them interesting wetware. Like it made it actually way better, because otherwise if I gave him just we'll reflavor flaming hands, I would have seen a whole lot of flaming hands and
It,
not as
it
much
increased their
creativity.
creative output, and
Hmm.
that's what the funnel does. Because we don't have weapons or abilities, it enhances your creative output because you're trying to
Hmm.
survive.
Yeah, artists and any creativity really goes up and up and up when you actually work under
Mhm.
constraints.
All right. Well, we do have one more handout from Jim. Elena, if you could bring up handout X4. Jim Warbler says the shaman with the pure strain human ability to regenerate luck and armed with their pick of artifacts of the ancient ones is every bit as powerful as the DCC wizard equivalent. Technological artifacts in MCC appear throughout the setting and are way more common than magic items in DCC proper. And so, yeah, you really don't even think about that. You walk outside your little village and you're hitting some kind of art structure of the ancients that we've left behind as we
Right.
build everywhere on the planet, and it's full of artifacts.
Yeah, and luck regen is a big deal.
Oh yeah,
Luck regen
big
is a
big deal.
very big deal.
We are going to hit that Darwinian luck in one of
All
these
right, are
upcoming
we on to
episodes.
the new questions then?
We are. Go ahead and hit them.
Matt, you muted.
I'm muted.
You were a second ago. Yeah, you're still muted. How about when you figured that out?
I hear
Oh
him just
no, what happened?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think Stefan, you're muted.
Mm.
Can you hear us, Stefan?
Stefan, can you hear me?
I got it now. You know what happened? I had my phone on my laptop and it hit the actual button that mutes my whole computer. That's what happened.
All right.
Bob, question number
Yeah.
1. Can a rover's ability to remain hidden be considered passive and always on? And I'm going to give you some background before I let you answer. Elena, if you could bring up handout 1A, please. On page 32 of the MCC RPG second printing, it says, being quite stealthy individuals, rovers have increased chances of remaining undetected by ancient security systems and even other mutants, according to see table 2.4. So, Elena, if you could bring up handout 1B and show us table 2.4. On the right side of that, Bob, it says door security systems remain hidden, and it's got at first level +1, second level +3, third level +5. My question to you is could that be considered almost like a mutation? Not a mutation, but could it be considered always on? So if
Okay.
they're approaching a stronghold and there's a patron AI that's got cameras everywhere and they're scanning, without saying, would you make them say that they're technically hiding?
All right, I'm going to give you a rules is written, how I believe rules is written translates, and then I'm going to give you this is how I would do it at my table answer. How about that?
Okay.
Rules is written. No, it's not always on. They need to know that they're trying to sneak, just like a thief, right? However, I would say that a good way to do it would be almost to treat it as the heightened senses of the elves, right? Elves still have that chance to detect a secret door even if they're not looking. So I would say if they're really trying to stealth up, I'd give them a D20. And if I was feeling, well, this guy is generally pretty quiet to begin with, I'd give him a D10. But no, it's not a equal to like a passive mutation that's just always present.
I mean, if you're thinking about getting scanned by things, it's the guy that gets scanned last, or gets attacked last. Because oh yeah, there's that guy back there. We almost forgot about him. I mean, you could role play it like that, but that's not rules as written. But you can incorporate it like that.
I'm not too sure, because if we reread that, it says, being quite stealthy individuals, rovers have increased chances of remaining undetected. Which, Bob, doesn't that say that they, as they're walking, they're undetected, and that their increased chances to remain undetected designates they're already undetectable?
No, I would say if I'm not looking at you, you're undetected. And if you know that I'm there and you decide to hide and I turn in your direction, you have remained undetected. So it is that whole, now I'm looking for you. Do I still not detect you? And that is remaining undetected. But again, I would lean towards for the fun of it, giving him a D10. It's sort of like, well, hey, do me a favor, roll a D10 for me. I know what the bonus the character has. They roll the D10, and then I know if they've been spotted as they're walking along by the the ancient's trail cam equivalent that is strapped to a tree that nobody has noticed or even thought to try and hide from.
I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about this, because they're, by nature, they're stealthy individuals. We already know that. Elaine, if we could bring up handout 1C, and I brought this in just to kind of differentiate between the two kind of mutations. So active mutations are generally mutations that act as at-will powers. You have to want to manifest them. Passive mutations are those that tend to have permanent and lasting effects upon the character. So they're there whether you activate them or not. And being a stealthy individual, if I'm always moving
Is not a mutation.
If I'm always moving in a manner of stealth, though, like a ninja,
it's
like
an ability.
quiet.
Ninjas are not always quiet. Quite the contrary. Other than movie ninjas would dress like normal people and just pass through a crowd. They didn't have to be quiet. So no, it's an ability, and you have to roll for abilities. That is kind of the way the game works.
We're gonna have to check with Joey Royale about the ninja comment, because I'm pretty sure they are always quiet.
Well, if you want to go American Ninja 3, it takes a ninja to kill a ninja, so they're also near immortal. So
I think you can keep playing devil's advocate until the sun sets on us, but we only have 12 minutes left, and we got a show right after us. Corporate Crash, of course.
All right,
you got to leave space for Elena to get them set up.
They're not right after us. I think we got an extra
hour.
Right after you, because there's an hour break.
We got no time.
All right. Well, let me quick hurry up. Elena, can you bring up handout 1D? Page 52 is a holographic skin mutation. This one's an active one. They have to roll for it. The mutant's body becomes transparent, leaving only noticeable silhouette duration. +5 to AC if clothed, +7 if naked. Would you give an AC bonus, Bob, if they are actively trying to hide? They say, I want to try to hide. I roll with my bonus. Would you give them an AC bonus for hiding?
Wait, you don't give hiding and AC bonuses don't go together. Cover and AC bonuses go together.
They might not get targeted. That's what hiding does.
You guys can read holographic skin just like I can. It says you get an AC bonus.
All right, where on the
say
Rover class description does it say holographic skin? Where does it say that?
But
So there you go. There's no comparison. You're comparing mutations with abilities. You're comparing a butterfly to wings with a guy that's strapping something on his arms and hoping not to die.
Well, touche. I've got another handout for you then, Bob. Elena, if you could bring up handout 1E, this is Tech of the Ancients, a sensor pad.
It's tech. It's still not an ability.
All right, well, whenever that comes out of the womb with this guy, he can have that bonus.
Oh, you guys are so harsh.
The name of the show is Rules as Written, dude.
It is. Stefan, what's your final answer on this? Can a rover's ability remain considered passive and always on? Yes or no?
No, it's just like a halfling getting their stealth bonus. No, it's not always on.
I'm gonna say no as well. No, Rules is written, it can't, but I think it'd be a cool ability because it says remain undetected.
Make it an artifact.
Bob,
or get a mutation.
Make it an artifact.
Bob, what's your final answer on
that? My answer hasn't changed. No.
Stefan, what's our next question? Because I really want to get to this one.
All right. What is the significance of the Rover's secret language security access? Secret language, maybe their security access. Let's focus on that.
Well, and that's not what it says. Rules is written, Stefan. So, Bob, Elena, if you could bring up handout 2A, page 18, Bob, it says Rovers learn a secret language called security access. It doesn't mention it ever again in the book. So we don't know what it is. But if it's based off of Thieves' Cant, Elena, if you could bring up handout 2B, page 34 in the DCC.
I'll stop you right there. I wouldn't base it on Thieves' Cant. Thieves' Cant, it would be wholly different. I would say, because Thieves' Cant is a way of describing things without describing things. It's more akin to Cockney rhyming slang. I would say that learning like security access would be understanding how passwords work, and they might walk up to something and there's a terminal of the ancients. Well, let's see if I hit these letters, drow sap. Oh, look, we might get in. It's more an understanding of security as opposed to Thieves' Cant. Thieves' Cant is holy.
Well, and Stefan, you found a handout, kind of clip an Omnivery of Eden. Lane, if you could bring up handout 2C. Stefan, what was that about?
Handout 2C was basically there's a section Omnivery of Eden. There's these doors, and even if you can't open it with a bypass check, regular folks, they can hack at it away with brute force. It takes them 6 rounds, but a rover can do it in 3 rounds. So even when they're just using brute force, they're better at opening doors.
Because they understand the language of security access.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
If we bring up handout 2D, right, and this is page 112, it's eidetic memory. On a 34 plus, it says when encountering an AI or artificial being to communicate in machine language, is security access, do you think it would be comparable to machine language? So the rest of that description is the AI recognition roles are not allowed as the artificial being always recognizes the PC as a fellow AI and treats them strictly according to its programming. Is that machine language between AIs? The security access language we're talking about?
Well, I mean, we know what machine language is, right? I mean, it's essentially binary. And we know that just based on the example that we were just given, right, of taking 3 as opposed to 6 to brute force your way through, that it's not automatically granted. But it is that understanding that makes them better at it, that makes them quicker at it. I think that it hasn't been heavily leaned on enough in some of the adventures. I think there should be more bonuses put into some of the adventures for rovers to use that ability. But it's not an automatic recognition. They walk up and the door says, "Oh, hey, you're one of us," and opens. It's
Well, I think we got to define it.
it's like
Nobody knows.
jive.
Nobody knows what the secret language security access is. Is it like R2D2 when he plugs into like any console? And
I think from explaining it from a human perspective, it is knowing pattern recognition in the context of machines and how to get through things. It is because they don't speak the language, they don't know code, they don't know binary. Maybe they know some math. Hunter-gatherer societies are typically not great at counting past single digits. You get 1, 2, a few, and a few. But it's just pattern recognition of I've had these experiences, and this lines up with this.
now to
And
go,
it is a knack that they have, but it is not some supernatural thing. It's just they're just
it's a secret language. It's a damn secret language. Excuse my language.
That's totally fair. I'm totally with you on it's a secret language. I'm just not with you on that it is. Oh, hey, it's the ultimate secret handshake to get through.
They partially grok this secret language. They are not masters of it. If they were masters of it, they'd know how to recode machines.
As opposed to thieves can't, I would say it's closer to an alignment tongue.
All right. Well, our next question deals with the language as well. Can Rover's secret language be used to expand to creating or disabling traps, Bob? And the reason I ask, because in handout 3A, in the description of a rover, besides them being ultimately stealthy and remaining hidden, they specialized in circumventing the tricks and traps of ancient ones. And this makes them a value addition to any secret team. Can you make the that secret language? Could that be used to avoid those tricks and traps and reprogram them?
I would have to say that it depends on the technology, right? I mean, if someone just sets up a simple snare, no. But if you're dealing with something like there's a hallway and there's like 4 hidden death lasers and a pressure plate, I would say yes. I would definitely say that would be part of security access, right? It would be trying to figure out how to bypass things. Now, it might not allow them to turn them off so much as to figure out where they are and how to potentially physically avoid them because they understand where they are. Unless there's like an access panel that you can actually turn it off, and then certainly that would come into play.
Stefan, do they need any kind of tools? Like our thief needs thieves tools.
They're gonna need multi tools and stuff. You ever try to undo a bolt with your fingers instead of a wrench?
Screw. I had to deal with those this past week.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that with your finger and your thumb or a fingernail shucked into a Phillips screw head or whatever. You're going to need some multi tools or some stuff like that. But essentially, I'm 100% with Bob on. Yeah, you can use this to disable some traps of the ancients.
So we're with you, Matt. Don't play devil's advocate.
Oh, well, I like
also, we don't have time for that. Angels only right
create
now.
A conversation. Let's get our final answers. What's the significance of the Rover's secret language security access? Rules is written is it's definitely a secret language. We don't get much information beyond that. I hope Jim's got some enlightenment for us on maybe some further clues or what's going on with this. But Stefan, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Bypass doors. I guess it's a secret language. I don't think they fully understand it, but they understand it well enough to use it. They can bypass some traps and stuff like that as well. As
Bob,
very recently discussed.
I look at it as like having a gigantic list of 10,000 or 100,000 passwords memorized. You can work your way through them. There's a lot of commonalities. So yeah, it's important, and I think that its importance is often underplayed in written materials.
Well, Bob, thank you for being our guest this evening. We will be back in 2 weeks on August 8th with special super guest James A. Ponzanel Jr., creator of the computer arcs and Enchiridions and all that goodness. NetHack that's going to be released at Gen Con, or NetCrawl.
Is it?
That's going to be released at Gen Con. But you guys got anything to say before we go off the air?
I'll be
Don't
back in
touch
2
that bat
hours on the
dial.
Goodman Twitch channel. So
Yeah.
I'll be on Goodman Twitch in 2 hours with Sanctus Decorum discussing Our Lady of Sorrows by Fritz Lang.
Yeah. Stay literate.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks.